The properties of adhesion and cohesion that we just discussed lead to capillary action. Now remember, a capillary is a thin tube or cylinder, like the inside of a plant, maybe a straw, or a graduated cylinder. We mention capillary tubes in our bodies as very thin blood vessels between veins and arteries. Capillary action is when water travels up or climbs up these very thin tubes. This is going to require the action of both adhesion and cohesion. Adhesion allows the water molecules to stick to the sides of the tube. Notice in the image, the water molecules are sticking to the tube and climbing up that tube. But not only are the water molecules sticking to the tube, but they stick to each other. So when water molecules climb, they pull other water molecules along with them. This allows the water to travel up the tube inside the plant to the rest of the plant, like the leaves and flower. We saw this in the last slide as well. When we read the graduated cylinder, remember that meniscus? The reason we have a meniscus is because the water is also attracted to the glass. Glass has a charge. Since water has a charge, it will be attracted to it. And it climbs up the side, creating this curve at the top of the water, which is the meniscus. When water freezes, the molecules actually spread out. And that's because the cold temperatures impact the ability of the hydrogen bonds to form. They don't form as well. So water is less dense when frozen. Those molecules are more spread out, and if they are more spread out, they are less dense. Notice the arrangement of the water molecules in liquid form. See how close they are to one another? That's because of the hydrogen bonds, allowing them to be pulled together. In ice, on the other hand, the hydrogen bonds can't pull the water molecules as close together, so the molecules are more spread out. This causes water to be less dense as it freezes. They stay in that spread out fashion as they are fixed as ice. So ice rests at the top instead of at the bottom. Think of a pond that freezes in the winter. The pond freezes from the top down, not the bottom up. This allows organisms to live under that ice, even in very cold temperatures. The ice acts as an insulator, preventing the cold temperatures from causing that water underneath to get colder and colder, and it protects the organisms below during the cold winter. Water also has a high heat capacity. That means it takes a lot of energy to change the temperature of water. This is very important to living things because it helps us to regulate the environmental temperatures as well as our body temperatures. Our bodies are made mostly of water. Since water resists that temperature change, your body maintains a relatively narrow range of temperature. So you don't get really hot or really cold when temperatures change in the environment. Environmental temperatures are also stabilized because of this. So think of maybe down at the ocean. During the day, the sand will be very hot, but at night, the sand seems to get very cold or much cooler. The ocean temperature resists that change. So even when the sun is shining, or at night when the sun is no longer out, the water temperature pretty much remains the same. Why is this? Well, it's because of those hydrogen bonds. Hydrogen bonds hold the water molecules together, preventing them from a lot of change or a drastic change in temperature. Those hydrogen bonds have to break in order to allow that temperature change. Water is also a really good solvent. Remember, it's positive on one side and negative on the other. So it will attract to anything that has a charge. Positive, negative, or even other polar molecules. This allows water to dissolve lots of other substances, anything that has a charge. Like salt, for example. You might remember that salt is made of sodium chloride. Sodium is attracted to chlorine because of their opposite charges. They will also both be attracted to water and dissolve easily. Remember, our sodium is positive and attracts the negative of the water molecule, and our chlorine is negative, attracting to the positive. Sodium and chlorine are bonded to form salt, but will come apart when mixed with water. That is when water is dissolving them. When this occurs, a solution is formed. It's a mixture of something in water. when water will dissolve it. Water is a really good solvent because it can dissolve lots of other substances. And this is because it has both positive and negative charges. An example of a really good solvent is our blood. Our blood is made mostly of water, which makes it a good solvent. Our blood can dissolve lots of materials, like salts, sugars, and proteins. These are important to be distributed around our body. Now that we have discussed the properties of water, see if you can relate them to our lab. Consider the observations you made with each of our activities. What properties of water were demonstrated by each?